I'm trying
As
not to
long
be
as,
distracted because my dog is smacking her lips in the background. So I don't think you can hear it, but if I look distressed, that's what is happening with my face.
well, as long as you're not smacking your lips, then that's fine.
Not yet.
Okay. So I'm at my house, and our producer is at the office, so um, let me make sure that she can see you because I saw you and now I don't see you, although I can hear you. So let me just check on this. Are you there?
I am. Can
Okay.
you see my?
No, I can't. But anyway, I used to be the program director of the Texas Book Festival, uh, and you came one year when I worked there, but I was a crazy person behind the scenes and did not get to meet you. So it's nice to meet you finally.
It is nice to meet you too. I remember that festival. That is when a fan came through the line and said, "Do you want to see the fan art that I've made for you?" And I said, "Oh yeah, ha ha ha, unless it's naked." And then she sadly put it away.
Oh my gosh, that's awful. Um, well, we also had one year, Amy Sedaris has published those kind of like faux entertaining books. Um, and so we had her in the cooking tent, and a friend of mine, unbeknownst to me, brought her a rattlesnake mounted on a wooden plaque. So I think she left that at the airport, um, but Austin is that way. I mean,
And would we have it any other way?
I know,
Surely.
and we love it. Um, so I'm just checking with the producer, but so we're gonna run this on July 1st, and I'll ask you questions for about 15 or 20 minutes, and we'll talk about Sinner and just sort of the rest of your career, and then we'll run it to help get out the word about the publication of the new book.
Awesome. Sounds amazing. I will
Okay.
try not to swear.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing you need to do is just like on TV or radio, just finish your sentences, uh, and you'll be fine.
You don't want me to end everything with so.
Right. Right. Well, you'd be surprised how many people do, but and then also we don't we will not be watching me on the in the actual live thing, so I can't make a lot of noises. So I may think something is funny, but you won't really hear me laugh. So it's not you if you don't hear me laugh.
I like that you're anticipating that I might actually make jokes in the questions. That's good.
Yeah. Um, so tell me, this is now the fourth book with Cole and Isabel. What has it been like for you, kind of emotionally, spending so much time with them? And clearly there's something there that keeps you coming back, um, or else you wouldn't keep writing about them.
Well, it's interesting because people ask me all the time to return to the world of Mercy Falls because what they really wanted to know was what happened to Grace and Sam, which are the main characters from the Shiver trilogy. And Cole and Isabel were originally side characters that were invented to show how amazing and entertaining and pure and virtuous Grace and Sam were, what great people they were, because you could see, in comparison to Cole and Isabel, who were horrible people, that they were fantastic. And so I never really imagined that I would be following them actually. I mean, they were huge fun to write. They had all the good lines, but I
Mm.
certainly thought it was a lark. It was a side trip down an alley looking down that way and going, oh, that's fun down there. And so I never thought I'd return to them. And it was actually after I realized that they have the most interesting happily ever after. The idea of what happens, can you be two terrible people and end up together?
Yeah. And so I think our reviewer called them jerks, but jerks with hearts. Um, is that the way that you think of them?
Yeah, I think so. I promised you before that I would, so I can't say really are, but I think Jerks with Heart is good for a PG audience. I really think that one of the things I enjoyed the most about them is that it's first person and it's close first person, so you can see how they act on the outside, but you can also look on the inside and see how their words don't really match what they're actually thinking. And so you see the jerk on the outside and the heart on the inside.
Yeah, that's nice. So, um, I mean, you do events, you are active online. I mean, you hear from fans. Obviously, that there's something sort of literary and narrative and character-wise that was driving you to devote a book to Cole and Isabel. They're interesting to write about, but how much does fan interaction play a role, and how do their desires for what they want to see you write, how does that affect what you actually write?
I actually really enjoy this question because it's kind of mirrored in Sinner, which has a huge social media component because Cole, who's a rock star, chooses instead of going with a traditional label, he does a lot of web work instead, where he's actually interacting with an audience and responding to what he thinks they want him to be. And I think that's a really dangerous road to go down. It's really compelling and really rewarding to have instant fan response, but I'm careful not to let that direct how I write what I choose next. It might focus that I choose to write another book in the world of the Wolves of Mercy Falls, but it wouldn't necessarily tell me how to write their story. So I think it's important to know that the stories are still inherently you, and then you're choosing which stories that are living in your head. And I'm lucky that I have loads and loads of ideas, so I can pick the ones that my readers actually want to hear.
Right.
I
Right.
think. I hope.
Yeah, because it's a tricky interplay. You want to give readers some of what they want, but also keep them guessing and keep them reading, right? So that's a tricky sort of balance to keep.
Oh no, that's totally a lie. I never want to give readers what they want. You want to give readers what they need. What they want and what they need are two different things.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, well, looking at reviews of your works, beyond just what Kirkus has to say, one of the things that struck me is that a number of reviewers have sort of talked about how you have this really great talent for making something that is fantastical, or maybe a world that seems kind of impossible. You have this talent for making it feel very palpable and real. And sometimes writers are the worst people to comment on their own style or voice. But I wondered if, having seen this kind of reaction to your work across the board, if you have any insight into how you're able to do that.
I actually, I'm not exactly sure that it is my doing in that. It's rather my background in mythology. I absolutely adore mythology, and it's what I grew up reading, both retellings of it and the original stuff. And what I love about mythology is that it makes real things more real and also more universal. So I can write a story about a boy who's losing his identity, which is what Shiver really is about, is a boy who gives away more of himself every single year as he's a teenager, which was very interesting to me at the time because I was visiting all of these high schools and watching people who were really crazy, interesting middle schoolers suddenly become anonymous to kind of survive these giant new high schools. And so that's what Shiver is really about, is giving away your identity. But if you put it in a high school, it's a very specific story that only really resonates with people who have been to a giant high school. But if you make it a boy who turns into a wolf, suddenly you have this story that I can get letters from people in Korea and India and Bulgaria saying, oh, it's so amazing. I cried when he lost himself and became a wolf, because it becomes universal. And so I think that's really the solution, is you solve for X, you bring it down to the absolute most basic mythic level, and then that makes it more universal.
Yeah, yeah. And also it feels like in your work, the more detailed that you get, in a strange way, the more universal it becomes.
I think it's true. One of the things that I have learned the most over the past couple of years is that I don't have to be afraid to be specific. and I don't have to be afraid to write a really peculiar to Maggie story. As a matter of fact, the stories that I'm the most terrified to put out because I think they'll only appeal to me are the ones that have the strongest response.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's this. If you look at the blogs and stuff, you'll see that people are saying now that the trend in YA is really going away from the fantastical, and more towards sort of reality-based work. I mean, first of all, I guess I wonder if you agree with that, and secondly, if you do, how do you feel about that?
I think that there's a natural kind of swell to trends out there. I mean, we saw it move really nicely from contemporary into fantasy, so it makes sense that now that the market's kind of washed with that, everyone's been overloaded with this sort of stories, and then they go looking for something else. I think it's a really natural thing for readers of all ages to do, is always to look for a way to widen. But you start with your comfort zone and then pick things that are slightly different. So we saw it go really into high fantasy, and then the real world started trickling back in, and now we're fully into contemporary. The stuff now that's contemporary is doing so well would have been dismissed as quiet books that we weren't interested in a couple years ago. So it'll be interesting to see it come back around again. I won't ever stop writing about magic, so you don't have to worry about seeing a contemporary from Maggie Stiefvater. Sinner's the closest you'll get.
Right. And so did you, I was curious if you always, wanted to write YA, or did you start out on a different track?
I actually originally thought that I would write middle grade, because at the time that I grew up, there was no real young adult, and the ones that I loved the best were Diana Wynne Jones, upper range, middle. And they were all about teen characters, and it was magic set in the real world, and they had this lovely dash of humor that was in with them, and I thought, these are the books that changed my life. That's what I want to write. And then very naturally, the young adult market came in, and it's all those books. It's fantastic. I will say I went through a brief and terrible stage as a teen where I wrote only IRA thrillers. They were all called things like Dead Man Running, Point Blank. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Right. And so what's next? Will we be hearing about Cole and Isabel or the characters in this series again?
I hate to say never, because never, when I say it out loud, always makes me look like an idiot years later. So I'm not going to say never, but I would say it's very difficult for you to imagine returning. And partially it's because I can't imagine myself returning to the werewolf mythology again. I only write about magic for it to be a metaphor, and right now, I don't know. I think I've used werewolves for all I can possibly get out of them. And Cole and Isabel end in a really natural kind of place at the end of their story, so it's very difficult to imagine. Also, I have a lot of other projects planned, so they would have to squeeze in to the schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is next? What's your next book going to be?
I actually just wrote my first project for middle graders this year because I have two kids who are 9 and 10. And Scholastic asked me if I wanted to be part of the multi-platform Spirit Animals. And I don't normally play well with others, but I thought if I did this, it has an online web component. All of their non-reader friends will read it, and I will be a hero and carried on a litter through the halls of their school. As you can see, it was a very noble place that this came from. And so I did that, and sure enough, this has happened. I was carried on a litter through their school, and now I'm famous. It's fantastic. And so I really enjoyed writing for that age group, and so I imagine, no spoilers here, you will see me writing for that again, especially now that I've figured out how not to swear or have immense amounts of gore for young children. Towards Spirit Animals that said, did the middle grade character just lop off the arm of an unarmed man? And I asked, should I give the guy a sword? And they said, no, the lopping is the problem. So I've worked out these problems. I think I can write for children now. That's fine. So I think I'm going to write for small ones and write for big ones next, and we'll see what happens. Also, I'm very excited to be incorporating more art into my work, and I actually brought this. I don't know if you've seen it online. This is the custom cover that readers get if they pre-order Sinner, and it rewards all of those people who have been following me from the very beginning. And so that's one of the things that's actually most rewarding for me about the online stuff, is that I see the same faces that have been reading the Shiver trilogy from 2008, and that's fantastic when they come to the lines of the actual events.
Oh, that's great. That's really great. So last question. You are someone I would put in the sort of lucky camp of, being a prolific writer. I know so many writers who wish they were more prolific. What's the secret? Do you sort of have a writing schedule every day, or how does that work for you?
Well, mostly I wake up and I remind myself that every day we march closer and closer to death, and so if I don't get those stories written now, it's all over. That was a really inspiring answer. No, for me, I just have to think of the project in my head. I really want to get the stories out, and I have other stories that are waiting in line, and so I really enjoy it. I can unwind at the end of the day. I love to do other things. I raced cars last year, and at the end of the day, I would sit in the hotel room and I'd write a novel to kind of unwind. So for me, reading and writing kind of scratch the same itches.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, I think I'll see you in Las Vegas in a few weeks at that party.
Yes, at ALA.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. Our marketing department might ask for a few signed copies and for you to tweet about the interview once it's up. But we'll go through the publicity department for all that stuff. So mostly, I just wanted to say thanks for your time and congrats on the new book.
Well, thanks you guys too. Kirk's has always been so nice to me, so I'll try not to ever let you guys down.
Okay, thank you. We like that. Okay, well, have a great day.
All right, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.